Hello and welcome to the Renewal Nuggets this week. I'm bringing a very important topic. What happens is if we're givers and we're helping others, that we encounter suffering in such a way that there's no way to alleviate someone else's pain. How do we think of this? How do we prevent our own burnout and our own burnout fatigue? And how do we experience other ways of helping others, not only in fixing and alleviating pain, but to be really with someone when there's nothing we can do to help and change their circumstances. I'm Dr. Ioana Popa from Team for the Soul, and I love the space of science, psychology, interfaith spirituality, and ancient Christian faith. And today I have a very special guest to our Renewal Nuggets, Sebastien Falardeau, my husband. And together we co-founded Team for the Soul. And I'm so excited and thrilled to bring him at an interview so you get to meet and really get to learn from his wisdom. He is an interfaith chaplain. He is also an advanced grief recovery specialist. He is a certified psychosynthesis life coach, and he also did internal family system training level 1. As a interfaith chaplain, he worked for many years in various hospitals, from working with in general hospitals to nursing home and people with dementia, to all the way to the end of life and hospice and back to hospital. He also worked with children with mental diagnosis and psychiatric on the psychiatric unit. And now he's a director of pastoral care at a hospital, a general hospital, where he's leading his team. It's such an amazing team, an amazing hospital that he works at. And he's also, together with me, we co-founded Team for the Soul right back in January 2019, because we both had a heart to really support and accompany and guide people on their journey. So Sebastien's specialty is on helping people through grief. He has an 8-week process moving through all the way from the pain to saying goodbye to the pain and recovery from grief. And then we also do together support and workshops and presentations while I'm working on regeneration and renewal with my course, The Renewal in Action. And also we're both really interested in how to help people and guide to finding meaning and purpose and really fulfill the highest potential. So it is with great joy that I'm going to introduce Sebastien Falardeau. Welcome, Sebastien. I'm so excited that you're here. And it's such a joy that we can have this conversation. We have conversations every day, but today it's really special to have to really bring your work into the world and all the amazing things that you're doing, which I know about, but I can't wait for everyone to hear. So welcome here. Maybe we can just start with a little bit about your journey. Like, tell us about where your vocation in helping and giving to others.
Yeah, my vocation for helping started really a little bit late after my first master. I remember when I was young, I was sometimes going with my dad to see some patients, and I saw him practicing. I saw him like behaving, to be with them, how he was reacting, was support them, and that really touched me. And sometimes it was not working, but it was bringing some music, city music to the patient who was dying. So that really touched me. So after my first master, I think I started a PhD in philosophy. I'm not sure. And at the time I was doing my PhD in philosophy, I saw the program to be a chaplain in hospital. So I said, well, I will try it. I think I would really like that. And I applied, and I did my CP there.
What really drew you when you said I saw the master in chaplaincy? Like, what
Well,
about it that really resonated with you?
it's a place that I like to be in a hospital.
Mm.
I remember when I was with my dad, it was a place I really liked to be, loved to be there. And I said, well, I don't want to be a medical doctor. So I think I can do that chaplaincy. So I was not aware about the program. I'm sure it was an old program for many years was there, but I saw on the website there was like offered a program to be a chaplain. So I said, well, yeah. So I switched to from my Christian philosophy to do the program to be a chaplain.
Mm. And what about the training that you liked? I know you shared with me. There's some, it seemed like a really cool program. It's so cool, by the way, that Sebastien convinced me to do some chaplaincy training myself. So there's something about the program and the training that really helped you. So do you want to say more about that?
Sure. I will talk a little bit more about my first two CP. CP 3 and 4, they were amazing also.
And CPE is?
Clinical pastoral education
Mm-hmm.
to train the chaplain, to have some tools. So my first two CP was in Hospital of Joliet with an amazing supervisor. We learned amazing skills and tools how to do intervention with patient, even with patient with dementia. I think it's the most complete tools that I learned, and that I read also after that. I didn't find tools like that I learned in Montreal. You have a spiritual sphere with 6 axes, meaning of life, transcendence, values, identity, community, and ritual. So
can you slow for a second? This is so cool. Can you say it a little slower? And what is all this? So there's 6 sphere in the spiritual realm.
That we think that can define the human.
Okay.
From inside.
From a spiritual perspective.
Correct. There's no definition. The patient will say out loud what is the meaning of his life. But it seems that in this 6 axis or 6 category, it's kind of inner category, very general. So I will say it again. The first one is meaning of life.
Mm-hmm.
Second one is transcendence.
Meaning, can you say a little bit more? So meaning of life, what makes someone resonate, right? That's what
correct. What's the purpose of the person? What's his meaning in life? Is this to be with his family, to work, whatever? He will choose what is the meaning of his life. Is this love? Is this beauty? Is this gardening? Mm-hmm. That we're not there to, we don't put categories inside of there's no definition of it except meaning of life.
And chooses, yes.
And the transcendence is the second one. Something that's transcend the patient. Can be God, can be nature. Some people going fishing, playing music, something higher, bigger than that. Mm-hmm. So the third one is values. Mm-hmm. The fourth one is identity. How you identify yourself. I am a doctor, I am a nurse, I am depressed, I am happy, I am a victim, I am lonely. So the other one is the community, the fifth one.
Okay.
Church, hockey team, friends, what kind of relationships you have with others people. And the last one, the sixth one, is ritual. Mm-hmm. Can be religious ritual or very ritual that we don't think about it. I got a patient many years ago. He was going to Dunkin' Donut 2 times a week to see friends. So it was a ritual for him, a place to express himself, to share himself, to share his ideas, his emotion, but he was in hospital for 2 weeks. So this ritual was not able to recreate it. Mm-hmm. So we can try as the staff to recreate some ritual.
For the patient in the hospital.
Yes, we can bring a coffee from Dunkin' Donut and sit with him for a few minutes, Mm-hmm. So there's many kind of ritual. So the chaplains have this in the background of his head when he enter a room. Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
So mostly the patient, without knowing it, will share the 6 axis.
In that category. So I'm curious how you think of rituals. The way I think of rituals is more, it's almost like a habit. You know, it could be anything we're doing on a routine basis, but infused with our soul, infused
Correct.
with self. So I'm curious, how do you understand that?
Yes, the ritual, it's a habit, like you say, but meaningful for you.
Mhm.
Something that nourish your soul, that make you alive, that make you grounded, make you connect with people.
That's
So,
so
so
cool.
there's many ritual, yeah. So we have that in the back of the mind when you enter the room. And after that, every axis they have a scale.
Okay.
Um,
Like a scale, like from 0 to 10 or
Not
1 to
0 to 10. It's the first one is spiritual being,
okay.
spiritual well-being. Excuse me. The other one is spiritual discomfort,
Okay.
spiritual worry,
Mm.
spiritual suffering, and spiritual distress. So when nurses or doctor will tell us this patient is spiritual distress,
Mhm.
yes, where?
Which of the 6 axes?
Yes, all of them or just one? This is very important for the chaplain to know, to not say there's a whole universe in distress. Because distress, at least there's many definitions, and the one we use is disconnected. This
Mhm.
is very rare. So it is suffering.
Mhm.
And where is this only the meaning of life and suffering? And this value is well-being, spiritual well-being, is ritual well-being also, or maybe the discomfort and transcendence.
Okay.
So it's how do I learned my first 2 CP in Montreal, those kind of tools as a chaplain. But again, for me, it's inner tools. It's not something like a model, external model, like we will do in biochemistry. I don't know, we'll take some plants, some rocks, or whatever outside, or something inside of us.
Mhm. Mhm.
So yeah, and those tools were able to be with the patient.
You with that, yeah. So if I'm hearing you right, you really love being in the hospital. There's something that you shared with your dad and this sense of this is a place where I want to be. And chaplaincy, there's something about the interior work and whatnot. And what about helping others that's really meaningful? Because I know in our conversations, you walked alongside with thousands. I think we calculated one time like 30,000 patients that you've treated in different settings, right? That's a lot of patients from different suffering or short term being in the hospital for a
Right.
few days to a huge loss in their family or even them being close to the deathbed. And I'm curious, what about in this process that really supports you, that makes you keep on giving, that makes you want to go back to the hospital? What about this giving that really interests you?
Well, yeah, I choose a specific work and send it. It's a chaplaincy. It's a specific intervention. It can be a few minutes. It can be an hour, but we don't follow them after that. Well, when they are outside of the hospital, yeah, it's short term. Okay, so I really like that.
Kind of short term, yeah.
Yeah, we're not like a psychologist, maybe with 2, 3 years, 4 years, psychiatrist, 2, 3 years, 4 years, 10 years, 20 years with the same patient. You know? So for me, it's this kind of journey. It's entering a sacred space with
Mm.
the patient, um, who is mostly in extreme situation. When we enter the hospital, uh, um, there's always not it's not a symbolic hospital, but it's a possibility of dying. You know, even when you hurt your hand, you know, or your elbow, it just broke. They are in a place that people are dying. You know? And it's a possibility people are dying. So there's a stress also for the patient going in the hospital. And there's something extreme that they will share. Mostly, they will share some very deep emotion.
So just by being in the hospital, they pass some sort of a threshold, and you're saying you're entering in the sacred space where they share very deeply.
Correct, and they don't know which side the doctor is as bad, it is worse. Is I don't know. I have pain here. Well, is this just something broke? Is this a tumor? Is it cancer? You know, they don't know what the doctor will tell them. So there's a sacred space, and
lots of the unknown, lots of the questions, and
correct,
anxiety and
a lot of anxiety. Yeah, and they will go straight to the point. So
you like that. You like that they go straight to the point. Is that had to do with your history of playing hockey before? You just kind of keep going for the...
Yeah, the same intensity. We have the same intensity. You know, when you enter the room, you don't know what will happen. No, you don't know really what's the patient have, you know, or even if you know, the doctor told you, or you have the chart, you read the chart. What's is a family? Is this a family problem, or anxiety, whatever personal stuff? What is relation with God or not with God? So you don't know what's behind the scene. And to support them, to be able to support them in this specific time. You know?
So you kind of like that kind of a mystery and the unknown and the intensity of it.
Correct. Yeah, this is what is sacred, the mystery. And I think this is the most important, to stay with the mystery. So staying with the mystery, the patient is able to open windows, to have other views, than to saying, well, you have this or you have that. This is so it's more open window to see how the patient can express, can be alive again in this journey. Yeah.
That's so beautiful. And I wonder, as you've encountered so much suffering, right, day to day, what's it like for you? And most people, it's natural to feel like I want to fix, I want to help, I want to change, I want to do that, right? And depending of professions, that's actually possible. I'm thinking, for example, of doctors who are surgeons, right? They can go into surgery right away, it's intervention. This almost feels like at the end of the spectrum, where there's not much one can do, especially if patients might face end of life issues or intense suffering. How do you find a way to give? Like, what is your type of, I'm saying type of giving is not really a type, but there's a way of being and a way of giving that doesn't involve fixing or helping, that it's so profound that from what I heard before, and I'm curious, how would you share that so can be an inspiration for others? Because it's so easy to get into the fixing role. And then we might be helpless because we cannot change or whatever. Then
correct, yeah. So the fixing role, chaplain can be trapped also in that when something touches us very deeply and that kind of disturb us, we will try to move on to fix. So we have to be aware about that.
To move on to what you said?
We'll try to fix the patient, because in fixing the patient, you will stop to share.
They will stop sharing, you're saying.
You will stop to share suffering. We will guide them to escape with fixing. So to people want a person to listen to them, to feel that they are alive, deeply alive, and to share their deep sadness, suffering, even well-being. They want to exist in front of another person.
To be witnessed.
Witness, yes, correct. And my work is to be there with them and be there with the mystery, in the sense that I always have the image of the Little Prince, the writer Saint-Exupéry, Antoine Saint-Exupéry, with the Little Prince when he meet the fox for the first time, and he tried to move a little bit too fast in the relationship with the fox, and the fox said, "Well, you have to know me before." He said, "How can I know you?" He said, "You have to tame me." So there's something rude, let's say, to a patient to accept that he will die or have the cancer or whatever. But if you can tame the reality, you will open to the mystery. It's less aggressive, more hope also.
When you say tame the reality, you mean taming the reactions? Or, I mean, the reality for someone could be final, right? They might have, the doctor might say 2 months to live. When you say
Correct.
tame, say more about that. You made me really curious.
Well, it's like with the Little Prince and the fox, they still have a mystery between both of them. And they don't know each other. They're not sure about that. They open to new path, to new journey, to discover other layer of their spirituality in their life. This is the hope that the patient could have also. So to not put them in labeling.
I see.
Or in a category also.
Right. So
if there's a big distress, suffering, if you can approach his suffering with the conception of the Little Prince and the fox, well, it's less aggressive and violence, less in shock. It's like a little bit of a dance. I'll be a little bit closer to know a little bit what is my cancer, how am I living with cancer, how I can be alive than a shock. So a little bit like that, I will say.
So in a sense, instead of being a shock and either being overwhelmed by it or trying to suppress it completely,
correct,
there is that. I love that idea of the dance. It almost reminded me of this term of that we see in ancient Christian faith, the perichoresis, the divine dance. It reminded me of that. And it also reminded me, it sounds very close in approach as a presence that you're talking about with two psychological methodologies, the internal family system, where at the core we have the true self, we have, I would call it soul, or some people call it spirit. There's something there that's untouched, unharmed, kind of befriending and witnessing different parts of us, different reactions, right? So in that knowing internally, there is a dance. Same as psychosynthesis. They use the term subpersonalities. Not that we have multiple personalities, but kind of like the younger version of ourselves that we encounter. And it's pretty popular nowadays to talk about the inner child and whatnot. So what I'm hearing is that you, and correct me if I'm wrong, there's a sense of almost in your work with your patients is that kind of connection, that kind of dance that can happen also internally between, let's say, my true self and my parts. You're having the dance and you're guiding the other to have that inner dance as well. Is that
correct? Correct.
That is so cool.
They have also the inner dance from inside of them also, like to be curious, to be moved,
Yes.
not to be stuck in their disease or in their spiritual suffering or distress or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
have a certain dance of it.
Right. So there's an internal dance with between them and their reaction, but also you're saying an internal dance between their existence and the
Correct.
reality they're encountering.
Correct.
That's so beautiful.
We see that often when I was chaplain in psych unit.
Mm.
When they say I'm depressed, they all that. They're stuck.
And
There's
the
no,
identity.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's all biological and all that. Well, there's no dance. There's no curiosity. They don't tame their reality. They not approach them. They're not, what's the mystery? And all that or not, well, what is your meaning of life? What is your transcendence? What is your ritual? All these layers, there's 6 axes. They're, we need to approach them and to be curious about it and to be flexible,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
to open to the mystery of life and our personal mystery as a human being also, than to be, I'm just that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. So when in that axis that you're talking about identity, it's not something that it's fixed.
No.
I'm just a doctor, or I'm just this, or I'm depressed, or I am sick. You're saying it could be more than that. Can you talk a little bit more about this scale of identity in a sense that you found the most resilient, like in your experience? Does that make sense?
Yeah, correct. First of all, one of the things that's important that we learned when I did my chaplaincy 1 and 2, and after that, I was grateful that I worked for maybe 3 years at the same hospital, and the supervisor was my colleague, but he was my supervisor. I learned a lot every day. And he said, don't forget it's this punctual, in the sense that you go in the room, the person identifies self, the patient identifies self as strong or sad or depressed or whatever. But that doesn't mean that tomorrow it will be like that. His identity can move and change. It's not fixed. So
I
when you
see.
go back in the room tomorrow, how do you feel? Oh, I'm so happy. Great. That's moving. It's not fixed.
So resilience, there's something about resilience that is brought in by some fluidity also in a way we identify ourselves. And in a certain sense, it reminded me like not taking ourselves too seriously.
Well, there's things like that. And resilience is, I like that you put it on the table because I think I did an article on that or research, whatever. And it's really existential resilience, less moral.
Okay, say more about that.
It's how you can be back on the track, but an existential point of view, because a lot of psychologists will focus on the moral point of view. Well, we see that resilient people, even the bad one, are resilient. They can, after if they miss
the bad one, like they might be labeled as bad by society, you mean?
Yeah, correct. Some people who do wrong thing, they can miss to steal a house, but after that they will try other tricks to steal another house, and that will maybe work. So in the sense, resilient is not really moral, it's existential.
Mm-hmm.
How you can go back from your existential point of view.
Mm-hmm.
How you can continue on your journey.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Hopefully a good journey, because we don't want to be our houses be stolen. But yes, no, I see your point that it's not the resilience as a trait has to do with a certain way of being.
Correct.
That it allows one to reposition, rethink and restart over. That is really cool. And I wonder, any lessons as you listen to many people at the end of their journey, are there any lessons that you like to share with our audience? A few tips here, or What did you find that's most meaningful as someone, because we don't get that perspective. Most of us, we live life, we might encounter someone who's dying in our, either family or neighbors and whatnot, and that's about it. But you have a total different perspective because you have actually seen lots of people at the end of their life and kind of listened their stories when they're passing on to what's next. So what are some of the nuggets that you could share with us, some wisdom?
Well, what's coming back always and always, first of all, I learned from them. And a deep awareness. And when I did my CPE1, I said, okay, that I need to change my life. What is coming back every time, and especially in end of life or big trauma, big physical trauma, and end of life. Patient will share mostly that they missed the track, they missed the target, and they were working, try to impress people, and they forget their family, they forget their kids, and they miss love. And now they want to love their family and to be loved. So they want to love their friends, and they want to see the beauty of life, to love the nature, to love the flower, to see how it's always mysterious, how it's beautiful, how to be grateful, how to be thankful to their wife or their husband or their kids. So they see that they focus on superficial things mostly.
They focus on what?
Superficial things.
Superficial. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I see many people, millionaire people, and they realize that they
Doesn't matter.
waste their life.
And how did you change your life? You got me so curious. So that was a pivotal moment for you, like learning from them in your first CPE.
Well, you see that even the people, the love always come back, and this is what every people want, to be loved and accepted by the other one. I was doing this chaplaincy support with spiritual support with scholars, writing books, article, university. But at the end, they were saying, "Well, I want to be loved. I want to be the rock star."
They said, "I don't want to be the rock star. I want to be loved."
I want to be the rock star. I want to be loved. It's why I'm writing. If I'm writing a thesis, articles, people will watch me and say, "Oh, you're so good." But what the end of what? It's to be loved. It's always around love and love. But they realize that then even that they missed their target in a certain sense, because they were saying to me, in 20 years and 30 years and 40 years and 100 years, no people will read me. It's quite true also,
Right.
And so
a lot of the reflection, you had the honor to really hear a lot of reflections in this way, and shifting of perspectives. Wow.
Well, yeah. So I realized that love was the center of their life.
I see.
So I said, well, yeah, because I have this awareness. I have to practice love now and not wait. They give me a gift, those patients. They send that. They made me aware that not wait in 30 years. To love people, to be grateful, to see the beauty of life and nature, the music, and to be kind, to forgive, to apologize. So they give me very like diamonds for me. Wow. Yeah.
That's beautiful. And would you say that your faith informed what you're doing? I mean, you're interfaith chaplain, so you really work with people of all sorts of faith or no faith at all. how would you say your faith infused what you're doing, and how how is that informing you in such a way that it won't feel burdensome for someone who might not share the same faith with you? Like, how do you handle that?
Like a patient who have not the same faith.
Right, exactly. So first, how is your faith infusing your work?
Well, so when I entered the room, I entered the room with the mystery,
Okay.
with what the patient believe. What is his belief or her belief? I will not enter with my specific faith as a Christian. I'm not entering with Christ, because that brings a framework, a kind of different framework that they can have, the patient.
You mean a logical framework?
Yes, and that
You're
can
not
guide.
meaning like of an embodied presence of Christ. You're meaning like a framework. Here is a story. Is that what you're saying?
Well, like all the framework, Orthodox framework or Catholic framework, they all have their resurrection, things like that, and all their belief, So I will enter the room mystery, compassion, love, and belief.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So
To be respectful, in a sense, what you're saying, you're
correct,
respecting.
because I'm not there to bring my faith as a Christian Orthodox.
Right.
And the general, universal, I would say universal, compassion is universal, mystery is universal, love is universal, and belief also. And even if it wasn't Orthodox, he doesn't live his life like me.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not true that he will have the same conception of resurrection or whatever.
Right, right. So you're staying in the mystery and curiosity and really staying with what they're presenting. Cool.
Correct.
And would you say that your faith is informing your work? Like, are any concepts in your faith or beliefs that allows for this kind of presence that you're talking about?
Sure.
Trinity, or I don't know, or emptying, or I'm just so curious.
Well, you have the example of Jesus when I think he's to be with the other one. Jesus was doing that. So this is like a model.
Mm-hmm.
God was doing that, listening.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus was listening to his disciple or other people. So correct, yes. And love, I will say, if Orthodoxy, God is love, well, that shaped my compassion, that will shape my intervention to listen, to be a better listener.
Yes, yes, beautiful. Thank you so much. And I'm really curious, as you experience all this, how do you incorporate in such a way to regenerate? And the reason I'm asking, it's not uncommon for people that are really giving and helping others to lead to burnout, to lead to compassion fatigue, to lead to, hearing and listening all the suffering. I know every time you come home, you're joyful, and I'm excited to see you, see your face. So you're not coming home burdened, you're not coming home pressured by the suffering. So I'm wondering, what's your system of regeneration, right? As you do through any rituals, any mindsets that you can share and really inspire our audience.
Yeah. So the first one, it was in my CP1, and they teach us how to regenerate. And he said, my supervisor, if after 5 or 10 minutes you're still devastated or disturbed, you have an issue. You come to my office. And if it's all
like that. So if 5 or 10 minutes afterwards, if you're still devastated,
yeah,
this is my problem, I better take care of it. Is that what you're saying?
You're correct. And he said, if that's coming often, well, you will need some support. Well, say, yeah, said, and we're curious, why did you say that? It's because we're students, you know? And he said, because we enter a sacred space.
Mm-hmm.
We choose our job to not be a psychologist for 10 years with the same patient. We choose an extreme job. We enter in sacred space and place, the room of the patient. When we go out, we don't bring the sacred space. This is the space of the patient.
Mm.
It's not yours.
It's not yours. Wow. So would you think that could be applicable to someone like could be a psychologist or a counselor or someone that just takes care of someone for years? Could this be applicable in the same way?
Correct. Because you don't bring the sacred place of the other to you. It's not yours.
It's not.
You're witnessing, you're witnessing a deep moment.
Yeah.
Sadness, suffering, I lost my child, 5 years old, he died, and this is terrible. But the sacred will stay with the patient.
I see.
So
So
it
it
is
is
the room.
right.
So if it's in an office, will be the same. Well, it could be the same. Could be some
Office at
nuance.
home or yeah.
Yeah, at home also it can be have some nuances. If you have deep meeting with your patient or client, and it's done. Well, you go out of the room for 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Go grab a coffee or just go outside to regenerate.
Yes.
So this is the first one.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. The first step. So remember the sacredness and the fact that it's not yours to begin with.
Correct.
Say goodbye to it, which reminds me of the Renewal in Action, the program that I'm leading, where one of the phases of regeneration is to separate and release. And you said it so beautifully. I love this. I will remember this. This sacred space is not mine to begin with. So I'm going to say goodbye to it.
Correct.
Wow.
So there's a difference when I
Yes.
go outside of the room and you see nurses and doctors devastated for hours and hours.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I said, well, no, this is their sacred space.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And what was the second thing?
Well, I would say the day-to-day life, things that regenerate. I like to do like exercise. I like to do meditation. I like to read comic books.
Mm-hmm.
So that brings me to regenerate. I like to read books, spiritual books, also theologian books, philosophy, going in the garden, do a walk and walk in the wood and nature. So things like that to regenerate. Yeah.
So just say again what you were saying with reading comic, go walking in the garden.
Yeah, walking in a meditation garden that you did. So after work, it's important for me to take a few minutes.
Yes.
Outside.
Yes.
Two small brooks, going to see them or not. I'm just going to the garden, see the flowers, and to see the beauty of it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
And
read comics books. I really
what about comics books that you like?
Yeah, well, it's when I was young, and I guess it's my first vacation. Well, when I'm able to read, So my parents was bring me and my brother to a bookstore every time before. Go to the bookstore, and after we go to the place we supposed to go on vacation. And so my dad and my mom said, buy what you want. Okay, so, and I grabbed some comic books. So it's magical, it's deep. It's, most of the time, for myself, more psychology than the book of psychologists. You learn a lot, and the beauty, the people who draw, That's
Oh,
just amazing. There's so many talents. Yeah, I keep this ritual. We talk about ritual. I keep this ritual most every day. I will read comic books.
mhm.
Maybe not one complete, but most of the every day I will grab a comic books. So
And
yeah,
I know from what you shared before to me, when you worked in a psychiatric hospital for children, you used a lot of the comic books as a way to connect with kids. And you even had some thoughts about uh, suggestions to parents how to use comics books in ways of engaging their kids and really entering their world. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
yeah. I think comics books and also Disney
Okay.
movies. Um, so for the younger kids, I will focus more on Disney movies. It can be even Star Wars or whatever. Um, and a little bit more older, they read a little bit more comics books. You see that superheroes have a specific fate.
Mm,
Um, if they don't have a specific fate, they will have a relationship with God. And you see mm, there's some have depression superheroes, some are sad, and how they interact with God and
mhm,
how God give them hope that they are not only depressed, they're not only sad. So um, I think in psychiatric unit, patient and family, um, that can be a big gift if the parents are more close to the patient, the children, and
mm,
more curious of what they're reading. They say, well, this is not Protestant, this is not Catholic, this is not Orthodox. Well, no. How to be with them in their journey with the
mm,
superheroes. And again, they have a deep theology, superheroes. And you see that God is very lovely in superheroes, very kind.
mm, mhm,
And how did the superheroes deal with the mystery? How they walk through the mystery with the mystery in their journey?
mhm.
So, and with the young kids, how to be aware that Disney movie, which one is that? I don't remember what one of the superhero is using his will, like in Psychosynthesis.
Okay,
I forget. It's a blue superhero. I don't remember.
gotcha.
Mega Mind. At the beginning, Mega Mind is very weird and mean with the people and doing bad thing and hurt people. And after that, said, "Can I change? Can I
Mm,
change? Can I use my will to change?" And
mhm,
he's changing to be a good person.
mhm.
But he said, my will is not satisfied. Can I do like tricks to the people? Not bad, but just funny tricks. So you keep a little bit is the bad side, but just doing some kind tricks. So so there's a lot of psychology that they
Involved
can
in that.
use the family who have kids in psychiatric unit. Yeah.
So if I'm hearing you right, in a certain sense, your suggestion is from working with kids and families on is for parents to enter that sacred space that the child might be, we might be in a relationship with a movie or comic books and whatnot, and really see the world through their experience and even inquiring about what they're noticing. Let's say it's a family that doesn't want to bring their kids, they do want to bring their kids to God, that can be actually a portal, an opening, a door opening to have those conversations through the child's perspective and stay in the mystery. Is that what you're saying?
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, they talk about God every page, is kind of.
Mhm.
so so it's something that they can bring them to uh, young children or adolescent going to church, and you've imposed your religion. they're aware that you're Orthodox or Catholic or Protestant. You don't have to push that, but to be curious to, hey, how Spider-Man talk about God, and your kids and your adolescent will say, oh, he said my dad is interesting about. That's really cool.
Yes, yes.
So the kid will share how Spider-Man talk about God, and you say, well, that's great.
That's exciting. That's exciting.
And I think that can bring sooner or later young generation to church without putting pressure.
Well, thank you for sharing all those nuggets. And I'm really curious as we wrap up, anything exciting that you're doing right now? Like, where are you on your journey? You're working in a hospital. Any projects that you're having that you would like to share before we wrap up? Or any other nuggets or wisdom, pieces of wisdom, so to speak, that you might share with us?
Well, I'm working in the hospital, director of chaplaincy. I'm very grateful for the hospital, for my team, my staff. It's a joy to work with them. I'm still doing my PhD on dementia. One of the biggest mystery for me as a chaplain, dementia, one of the most complex to work with them, and one of the most challenging for myself. What is a human? Western country, mostly, or even Eastern, will define a human as a rational person. What if it's that? So they're not human. So what's the core? What's the core? What's the base of the human? So I'm working on that. I'm writing articles, and I will say the most important, it's the person in front of you, to be with him or her and to listen and to love them.
Yes.
Compassion. This is the most important, and to be aware of it.
Yes.
Not be stuck in a daily routine that bring you to this awareness in palliative care when it will be the time to die.
That's right. Well, thank you. And how about a Team for the Soul? Our work.
Team
What
for
do you
the Soul.
do for the
Well,
soul?
I do grief. I focus on the grief section.
So if you want to work with grief and you want to work with us at Team for the Soul, here's
correct.
Great hands.
Grief recovery, it's one of the most important training that I did. Unfortunately, we don't have that in chaplaincy. We don't have these tools in chaplaincy. Forgiveness, apologies, emotional statement. We don't work with that in a certain process. We have it here and there, but we don't have the process to bring the patient to heal. That his heart will heal. And the recovery, it's what they mean about recovery, and often say that what is one of the most important page in the recovery book. And I say
show the book for people. So Sebastien is talking about the Grief Recovery Institute.
Yeah, this one.
And he's Sebastien is advanced specialist with them, and he's doing
correct. And of course, it's all the process to bring you to say goodbye to the pain, and not the relationship to the pain.
Okay.
But there's a page very important. It's page 6 and 7. The goal, one of the goal is, I will not read all of it, but just a few. What do we mean by recovery? Recovery means feeling better. This is important. Not just say goodbye to the pain. Recovery means claiming your circumstances instead of your circumstances claiming you.
So claiming your circumstances instead
Yeah.
of circumstances claiming you.
Yeah.
So that's empowering.
recovery is finding new meaning for living without the fear to be hurt again. Recovery is being able to enjoy fond memories. So it's bringing back to a joyful and happiness place for the clients. So, and grief recovery, that's bring to review your relationship.
Gotcha.
You know, and with all your losses. So there's something very amazing about grief recovery.
And how do you work? Do you do a one-to-one? Do you do groups, a number of sessions? Like, what's the setting, and how can people, if they're interested, to reach out to you? And
correct. So I do both. I do one-to-one or in a group. So the framework, the process will be the same.
okay.
Some people prefer more one-to-one. Some people don't like to be in a group, and some people better prefer to be in a group. So I do both. So
How long
what the best for the clients?
How many sessions?
I think it's 8 sessions, if I'm correct. Yeah, it's 8 sessions, correct.
So in 8 sessions, there's a process of bringing them from the beginning all the way toward moving towards recovery.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And I bring them back to the page 6 and 7.
Bringing back to
the goals, you know, to find new meaning, to feel better, to be happy. You know, this is important. This is important, the grief process.
Yes. So if I'm hearing you right, there's a sense of hope. I know many times in our culture, grief is understood, well, I'm always going to feel the pain. I always going to have the loss. I'll never get over it. We hear that, or time will heal, or whatnot. But you're saying there is a process that's effective, and not just because you're trained, but you've been a chaplain for many years. So you've seen other modalities. Is that right?
Correct. Correct. There's a process that chaplain, we don't have as a chaplain. We didn't learn this process. Of course, we will work with forgiveness, apology, but we don't have the process to bring to a healing process of grief.
That's right. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing. Anything else? Any words of wisdom before we wrap up today?
Well, to enjoy life and to be a kind person, lovely person, to be grateful, thankful when you reach a person.
Thank you so much for being willing to show up today and bring all your wisdom and your experience. And it's really a joy to, Sebastien and I, we co-founded Team for the Soul. And we have lovely conversations in general, but this one in particular has been really very special. And I've learned new things that today you've been hearing them for the first time. So thank you. I think I will stay with that sacredness of the relationship, and that space is not mine when I'm accompanying someone. And I'm curious, as if you're watching or listening, what are you taking away from here? And you can type in the chat. And thank you so much, Sebastien. What a joy.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you so much for being part of this renewal conversation. And I encourage you to type in the chat any thoughts, any questions that you might have. And if you want to reach Sebastien directly, you can reach out by going into our website, Team for the Soul, and look at Sebastien's page. And there's a way to contact him directly. He does amazing work with grief. And I hope you have a wonderful time, and thank you for being in this shared space and time.